Welcome to the Fantasy Champions Fantasy Football Podcast. Here's your host, Morgan Colby and Rick Lemon.
What's poppin', Fantasy Tubes?
What's up?
How you doing, Rick?
Oh, I'm just PG. How are you?
PG. Yeah, dude, I'm doing fine. I'm doing A-okay.
You sound a little bit better than last show.
I do?
Yeah, last show you sounded like you had been sick for 10 years.
Pneumonia?
Yeah.
COVID? No, I'm glad I sound a little bit better. I feel fine. Maybe it's allergies.
Well, yeah, hopefully. Unless maybe you do have COVID.
Yeah. I heard the symptoms changed for that, so I have no idea what's going on anymore. But
So, I mean, the door's open.
the door is open. Welcome to Fantasy Champions Fantasy Football Podcast. My name is Morgan Colby. I got Rick Lemon on this side of the screen. I hope I'm pointing in the right direction, so we'll find out.
I'm somewhere.
So he's somewhere on the screen. And today we're going to talk about, as promised, our top 12 running backs for the 2021 fantasy football season.
Now, I want to make a disclaimer real quick, though. This is while I'm doing my projections. Like, I'm in the process of it.
He'll probably
So some
change.
things will definitely change leading up, but this is for June at least. This is my top 12 and your top 12.
I would think rankings are always subjective. Like, they
Right.
constantly change. Like, every single time, every week I go in and change. Probably daily I go
Or,
in
like,
and change
weekly,
things.
yeah.
So,
Yeah, makes sense.
but top 12 usually stays kind of the same. So, we'll see what happens there. I know I have a particular guy on the list that I have in a particular spot because we don't know what's going to happen with their offensive situation. So, things are
Yes.
all over the road in terms of the offseason. Anything, Wild West, anything can happen.
Yeah, I have the same player, I think. Very low because I just don't know yet. But
Yeah.
Things change, obviously.
So basically, we're going to give you our top 12 running backs as promised for the 2021 fantasy football season and try to go through pretty fast. I don't want to spend too long on each player. You know what I'm saying? No, not worth it.
Especially because we have 12, so
Yeah.
probably best that we
We're
don't.
rapid, though. And plus, we've talked about these guys 1,012 times.
We do.
So we don't
Yeah.
need to talk about them anymore. But before we jump into that, be sure to check out our website, fantasychampions.com. Any social media platforms, just type in the FF Champs or the Fantasy Champions. You'll find us. If you're listening on a podcasting platform, be sure to leave a review and share this podcast with your friends. If you're watching on YouTube, click the bell for noties. Hit the big red subscribe button so we can get more people watching this frickin' sucker. And then like and comment down below anything you disagree with for this particular rankings show. Because I guess your opinion helps drive opinion.
Yeah. Chances are you're probably going to disagree with something, or maybe you just agree entirely with everything we said.
I love the people who comment on the YouTube video and say, you ranked him 8 instead of 9, you losers. You don't know what you're talking about. Oh, wow, okay. A little
How
intense
dare
for
you
YouTube.
put him one spot lower than where I have him? You guys know nothing.
You guys don't know anything. You bunch of losers. I'm not talking
Love
to
it.
our listeners, but the people who comment and hate on us. It is what it is. And then we have the draft guide. Pre-orders are live currently as we sit here and as we speak. And as you listen to this podcast, there is a portion of our website that is allocated specifically towards the draft guide. All you got to do is go there, hit pre-order, and then order it. It's $9.99. Simple enough. There's we're going to have rankings in there, both dynasty and redraft. We're going to have breakouts, bust sleepers. We're going to have player projections. We're going to have a ton of other content in there. So you can lose your fantasy league just entirely, or you could buy the
you could
draft
do that.
guide.
Right. I think the decision's pretty easy,
Yeah.
if you ask me.
Yeah, it's pretty easy. Cheapest draft guide out there. Come on. Simple enough.
And come on.
It launches on July 9th. So be sure to check that out. Let's talk about our top 12 running backs. What do you say, Rick?
Let's do it.
All right, so basically how this is going to function is me and Rick both have two separate top 12. We usually come up with a consensus. That's what we've done in years past. But I feel like that's not because there's only two of us. If there was three of us here, it would maybe change the dynamic a little bit to have an average of ranking. So one guy puts Dalvin Cook 1, one guy puts Dalvin Cook 4, one guy puts Dalvin Cook 3, and then he might average out to 2. Don't do the math on that. I have no idea. I don't know if no idea if that's true. But when there's 2 people ranking and we're all kind of in the same spot, it's hard to break down where the players actually land on our average list. So what we're going to do is we're going to break down our top 12 running backs based on what the Fantasy Pros expert consensus rankings are. So where everyone else has these guys, we're going to just list them off from there. And then we'll tell you where we have them ranked, why, and then move on to the next guy.
Okay, sounds good to me.
Wow, my HD display for my camera just went blue for a second, and I don't know why. I was so confused. All right, so
to hear the rankings.
First guy we're going to talk about really quickly is Christian McCaffrey. You want to lead it off with C-Mac, Rick? Because I have him one.
I have McCaffrey one too. I don't think anyone in the world has McCaffrey anywhere other than one. If you do, yeah, I guess you must be a real fan of Dalvin Cook because McCaffrey, I mean, he's been the RB1 consistently when healthy for 3 straight years now?
Yeah.
Last year, and I include last year because he was averaging 30 points a game before he got hurt. Mm-hmm. I mean, just ridiculous. And he does it with quarterbacks like Teddy Bridgewater, with Cam Newton.
Right.
Who was the other quarterback they had too for a short period of time? Kyle Allen. So it doesn't matter who his quarterback is or how good the offense is. They're going to run it through McCaffrey. And there's a chance that I even get an upgrade at the quarterback position with Sam Darnold. If that happens, man, I mean, he's already number 1. Mm-hmm. It's only good things. The only concern that you might have is him coming off the injury, but to me, that's not a valid concern because it's not like a real like a torn ACL or something. Mm-hmm. Wasn't it a hamstring injury?
I can't remember. It might have been.
Was whatever it was.
Nick Chubb
wasn't
the quad?
Yes,
I can't remember, but either way.
But it wasn't like an ACL or something that has a long-term effect. Or historically speaking, has a long-term effect. So McCaffrey, number 1, the easiest decision of our lives.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's pretty. I mean, Rick made all the points. It's pretty self-explanatory. When he's on the field and when he's playing and he's healthy, he is clearly the RB1. I had some concerns slightly last year. I mean, everyone ranked them 1 anyway, and so did I. But I had a small amount of concern last year just because of the change of offense. And that they were going to maybe move away from using him in the same capacity that they used him when who was the head coach the year prior?
Ron Rivera.
Ron Rivera, thank you. When Ron Rivera was there. So I thought they might shift away from using him in that capacity, but nothing changed, at least for the time that he was on the field. And when Mike Davis was on the field, nothing changed. Like they used him
exactly. I mean, Mike Davis was lighting up that offense. What do you think McCaffrey's going to do?
I mean, he was only averaging 3.8 yards per carry, I think, over that stretch. So.
Fantasy points, though. Fantasy points,
fantasy points, he was fine. But either way for Christian McCaffrey, I think when he's healthy, he's on the field. I think for me, the only concern is that maybe because of the injuries that happened last year, they dial back the workload a pinch. But
that's I think that's a legit concern.
But I think for me, like, you're drafting him as the number 1 running back as if if he's healthy, he's going to be the number 1 running back overall. Like, I believe that 100%. But like, if he doesn't end up the RB1, and you would say there's about a 70% chance of him being the number 1 running back in fantasy football by the end of the 2021 season, I would say there's almost, if without injury, there's about a 100% chance that he ends up a top 3 running back. Yeah. Or I'll say 99% chance.
Yeah.
So if he's healthy, plays all 16, a guy like that, you have to take number 1 overall.
Right.
And have as your RB1, I guess.
Of course.
Number 2, this one is pretty, this one's also self-explanatory, is Dalvin Cook. His ECR is 2. He's 2 on my list, and he's 2 on your list, correct?
Yes.
So I got to make sure I'm looking at this list properly because we're starting to get into the guys that are going to be different, but I didn't scroll down. I'm just going off your list.
Oh, really?
So anyway, Dalvin Cook, the last couple years has been really good. And one thing that I've been thinking about is that there's been, at the wide receiver position and the running back position, there has been last year or two, there's been a changing of the guard of the top running backs. We're getting guys like, even like Jonathan Taylor and Nick Chubb are coming up in the future to be in that top 3 class. But you see Dalvin Cook coming into this conversation and Christian McCaffrey when it used to be the Todd Gurleys of the world.
Right.
And so I think for me, when you talk about Dalvin Cook, last year, like 2 years ago, he was one of those breakout candidates. I was super excited about him. I was like, this guy's going to be really good. Came in, ended up being really good. What was he, a second-round pick that year, I think? EDP?
I think so.
So, and then obviously he had a really great season, came out last year, and I was a little bit concerned because we just didn't see it more than once. So was there a chance that Dalvin Cook re-injures himself, like he had in the first couple years of his career? Is there a chance that he doesn't do what he did in the first couple years of his career? Yes. And I was a little bit slightly nervous about Dalvin Cook, and I think a lot of people were, which is why he ended up like 6 or 7, right, last year in drafts.
Yeah.
Overall.
Something like that, yeah.
Anyway, so for Dalvin Cook, like in my personal situation, like he's proved himself, and now he's worth that number 2 overall selection. And I think there is still the Dalvin Cook injury chance that you take because he has been injured multiple times in his career.
Yeah.
And so that's always going to be there. That stigma is always going to be there. But which is probably why I have him 2 more specifically as well, even though McCaffrey did get hurt last year. But I feel like Dalvin Cook is definitely like if you're number 2, you have to take Cook. There's no reason to take a risk on taking a guy like Henry or Barkley or Kamara here. You just take Dalvin Cook. Fantasy football isn't like you don't have to play hard. Mm-hmm. Some people come in and they're like, I'm going to use my 2nd overall pick on a guy I want, Jonathan Taylor. And then it's like, why did you do that? It's literally fantasy football ain't that hard. Just draft the right guy. And Dalvin Cook, number 2, is that guy.
Yeah, I think the first 2 picks are pretty easy for the both of us. Mm-hmm. You mentioned the changing of the guard. That is kind of how it is, though, with running backs because they only last like 4 or 5 years.
Yeah,
so you'll see a changing of the guard.
Players are 4 or 5 years.
Right, in their prime. So you see changes pretty often, but yeah, I think Dalvin Cook has established himself as one of those top guys.
Yeah.
The injury history, as you mentioned, is still a slight concern, but he's had 2 straight years now of pretty much fully healthy seasons. Or close to it, at least. I think he missed 2 games last year or the year before that.
Yeah.
But overall, he's played at least like 14, 15 games, which is pretty much all you ask for your top guy.
Yeah.
And if Alvin Kamara didn't have that 56-point week or whatever at the end of the season last 50-something, depending on what
Dalvin Cook would have been
format you had.
overall.
Dalvin Cook, he was the RB1 last year. And he was consistent all year long.
Or number 1 overall.
He was just an absolute beast. And is that going to change in 2021? No. It's not. Barring injury, of course.
There's nothing, but I mean, unless you really believe in Ekene Nwangu coming in and
No, the offense hasn't changed at all.
I would be a little bit nervous, Rick. I mean, 7th round pick.
You're right. Dalvin Cook, he's not even a 1st round pick.
Yeah, and nothing's changed really for them at all. So I just for Minnesota, I wouldn't even be slightly concerned that it's not going to be the same for him. Usually, when you're drafting, you want to stick with guys who you know are going to be like good and consistent.
Dalvin Cook, is going to be good.
And Dalvin Cook, is going to be good. So, the third guy that we have is Derrick Henry. You have him 4. I have Derrick Henry 3, and the ECR has him 3. So, explain why you have him 4.
Look, he's still Derrick Henry. I mean, he's still a beast. He is, though, I want to say 27.
Old man knees.
Which for a running back, that is, he's had 3 straight years of, I think, 300-plus carries, or 2 straight years at least.
Right.
Plus his age. It's just something that I'm looking at. He's had 2 straight years of 300 carries. Last year, he had 378 carries. He had almost as many carries as NFL teams do by himself. I just don't think that's going to happen again. I think he's going to get 300-plus still. He's still Derrick Henry. He's still the vocal point of that Titans offense, but they added Julio. You don't think they might want to, and Arthur Smith is gone, you don't think they want to throw the ball just a little bit more? I mean, I'm not saying they changed their offense or anything, but maybe just a few times that makes a fantasy impact where it's like 10, 20 less points for Derrick Henry because they throw the ball more. I mean, I'm really like grasping at straws because I still think Derrick Henry is a top 5 fantasy running back, and I have him number 4. But that's the only reason I don't have him any higher is just for those reasons.
Okay. I mean, I agree. I agree with you that there is a lot on the Derrick Henry kneecaps that you have to be concerned about.
And then one more quick thing.
Go ahead.
It's Derrick Henry, so he's never had 20 receptions in his career.
Oh,
I
yeah,
think
that's fair.
important.
That's fair. Yeah, for me, I've had, which is kind of funny because you always had Derrick Henry higher than me. And,
I know.
So this year I've decided, and this could very well be the year that Derrick Henry poops himself and is not good. So, and it probably will be because that's how things work out for me. But Derrick Henry, I think he's, to me, like 2 years ago, he had one really big game against Jacksonville, and that was it. And there was really no proof that Derrick Henry could be a good running back for Tennessee outside of that game and the stretch of games that he had following that, which was like, what, 4 games? So, and then after that, obviously, he went in last year, and was it last year? And yeah.
2019, I think, was his first real, because 2018 was the game against Jacksonville where he broke out.
Yeah.
And then he finished the year off. And then 2019, he had a great year. And then last year, he topped that as well.
So last year, the interesting thing for me is that going into the season, I felt very much that, like, Derrick Henry doesn't have this pass catching ability. Or that at least if he does, they don't use it, right? And for me, I don't, and I haven't seen him be good in the passing game anyway, so I'm going to say he doesn't have it. But either way, he's not getting the pass catching work. And every offseason we go through the same thing over and over again, where we say, "Oh, Derrick Henry's going to get the passing work. That he's working on his passing game. You know, they're gonna throw it to him more," and then it doesn't happen, and he gets 10 targets on the year on 8 catches. And it's just with that kind of workload in a half PPR and PPR setting, it's hard for me. When we're talking, these rankings are based on half PPR, by the way. But it's hard for me to put Derrick Henry that high, and that's what I was running into last year, where I had Derrick Henry really high a really like lower than most people would in my rankings. And it was because he didn't get pass catching work. And last year he proved to me that I guess if you're getting 325 rushing attempts and every single goal line carry that you could possibly get, he's safe as a top 5 running back.
I think there's I'm going to start using like a new phrase with Derrick Henry and players that are like him, like the Derrick Henry exception or something, where it's a player that just does not have any passing game. I mean, J.K. Dobbins and Nick Chubb could fall in this category, where they have very to little passing game work, but they're just so good on the ground and they get used so much on the ground that it almost doesn't matter.
See, now I don't think like
378 carries, 2,000 yards.
You might be. I mean, Nick Chubb even gets more passing attempts than Derrick Henry.
He does, but not by a lot.
I know, but I think for me, like, especially with like a guy like J.K. Dobbins or even Nick Chubb, like those guys aren't going to hit 325
no, they won't.
plus rushing attempts. I think that's what makes it so that Derrick Henry can finish top 5.
Correct. And that's why Henry's ahead of those guys, though. Right.
Right. Exactly. So I would say that at this point for me, Derrick Henry is definitely he's number 3 because he's getting the workload, which is fine, and he's able to be extremely efficient with that workload. And so as long as he is efficient with the workload, getting 1 fantasy point per opportunity or 0.9 to 1 fantasy point per opportunity, and he's getting 300 plus opportunities, the guy's going to be top 3. And I think there's nothing to me that suggests that Tennessee is going to shift their focus from the run game to the pass game. Outside of going and getting Julio, maybe they shift a few more rushing attempts away from Henry, but I just don't know that that's going to happen. If they do, it's going to be more 50-50 than 40-60 run, or I would say 45-55 run. But
right.
You know, I haven't gotten to Tennessee's projections yet, so I'll let you know when that happens.
I haven't either.
That's like last on the list over there. So the number 4 guy, according to the ECR, is Saquon Barkley. I have Barkley 5, I believe, and you have Barkley.
I have him 3.
3. So we're both. I'm lower than the consensus, but I was gonna rank him 6, so I feel like I'm higher than my own self.
Yeah.
Your thoughts on Saquon?
Sure. The reason I have him 3 ahead of Derrick Henry is because I think people just forget how good this guy is when he's healthy. Like Derrick Henry last year we talk about how great he was, and he was fantastic. But he had those 378 carries, right? And he had all those that work on the ground. If he has the exact same season he did last year, which is his peak, and Saquon Barkley has the season he did in his rookie season, which has so far been his peak, Barkley would have outscored him by 20 fantasy points.
Yep.
I think Saquon at his peak is just fantasy wise, and I think actually I'm not sure about real life. That's a topic. That's a debatable topic. But at least in fantasy, when both players are at their peak, I will take Saquon Barkley. I think the injury is a legitimate concern, though.
Yeah, fair.
And how is he going to play post-injury? How are they going to use him right away, especially in the first few weeks of the season?
Right.
I think those are all valid concerns. I just think when he's on his game with an improved offense, that offensive line is better than what it was when he was at his peak in 2018. So that team is better. The quarterback, hopefully better with those new weapons, the offensive line. If everything can come together for the Giants, Saquon Barkley, he has a chance of competing with McCaffrey if everything comes together for New York.
Yeah, I mean, I think I have him 5 because I don't know that he can compete with McCaffrey, and more specifically because he is coming off was it an ACL injury?
Yeah,
that's not good for running backs. So I'm just like I believe in him just as much as you do if he was healthy. And who knows? Maybe he's fine and he does exactly what he needed to do. But I would love to see this guy in an offense where Danny Jones is actually okay, and they're able to throw the ball down the field. Because then the pressure is not the stacked box rate is not going to be so high for Saquon.
At peak for the Giants, he could compete with McCaffrey because that's assuming the Giants' offense is what they think it is, which I'm not saying it is. But
he had, in this first year, 121 targets and 91 catches. His second year, that went back a little bit, but if he played a full 16, he probably would have finished with around 65 catches. So it's like he's in that ballpark, in that vicinity, where he could get 60 to 70 catches on a season. In 13 games, he had 1,400 scrimmage yards in 2019, and he had 2,000 scrimmage yards in 2018. So, like, had he played a full season there, the guy probably would have ended up with over 1,700 to 1,800 scrimmage yards.
Right.
And he gets the goal line work and scores the touchdowns. The only reason why he didn't have a great season in 2019 is because he only scored 8 touchdowns, and he scored 15 in the year prior. And we only got to see 2 games from this guy, and the first game was ugly. So, but he did have 9 targets in 2 games. If that means anything. Yeah. So he still got the target share, I guess. But I think for me, like I said, I think it all comes down to injury, but I do agree with you that if the injury does not affect him at all, and he comes back like full bore, ready to go, and he's as good as he's ever been, then I think he can be a top 3 running back, and I think you're snagging him there. And I don't know where his ADP is at right now, but considering that
he's not going top 3.
Considering that he is number 4 right now, I think he'll fall anywhere between 4 to 6 because he's kind of in a tier 2 range with a lot of different running backs.
Right. I hope I have the 5th pick and he's there at number 5. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, you're going to start sweating. But anyway, the next guy on the list is Alvin Kamara. He's number 5 on the ECR. On my list, he's number 7. So we're moving down boards here, and he's number 5 on your list, matching the ECR. I feel like we're moving slow in this list. Maybe it's the top 6 running backs. I don't know. But anyway, so I have him. I'm just going to go over why I have him number 7 really quickly.
Sure.
I love Alvin Kamara. I think he's a fantastic player. He has had up and down seasons where one season he's like top 3, next season he's like top, like between like 10 and 12 or 9 and 12 and doesn't finish in the top 5. So I'm not saying that's going to happen with Kamara, but the big thing is the big man on campus that dumped it off to him 470 times a season is gone. Yep. And that's Drew Brees. Under Mr. Taysom Hill, he had a pretty abysmal target share in the passing game. And the hard part for me is that Alvin Kamara, believe it or not, you go look the stats up. If you're listening to this podcast and you're listening to this Alvin Kamara section, go look up Alvin Kamara's stats. He's never had a 1,000-yard rushing season, ever. which is kind of surprising considering that you always draft him in the top 10, right?
Yep.
So for me, when I look at Alvin Kamara, I think the hard part for me is that without the passing game target share there, where he gets 80 catches on a season, right? First 3 years of his career had 81 catches consecutively, and then he had 83 last year, and he always gets around 100 targets. Without that part of the passing game, with Taysom Hill, he only had like a total of 60 targets for 40 catches. If this guy doesn't get the groundwork, and he's never had over 200 rushes, by the way, in a season as well, without the rushing work for Alvin Kamara, which he doesn't get, he's going to get between 180 and 200 carries. If he doesn't get the passing game work, it's just not there for Alvin Kamara. Now, it could be different with Jameis Winston. We don't have a sample size with Jameis Winston as a starter. I would think that Winston plays a similar style to Drew Brees' prime when he was throwing it down the field and not dumping it off every 5 minutes. But even that Drew Brees had Alvin Kamara at 81 catches. So if he gets to 81 catches or 80 catches on the season, I think he's going to be fine. It's just a matter of, does that happen? And if it doesn't, where does he land? I think he ends up being maybe a high-end RB2 if he doesn't get that workload. I think he's just a massive risk. There's so many question marks around him. There are just other guys that I would rather take.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there. There's just so many questions with Alvin Kamara. And I love the player. And I think he's still Alvin Kamara. So that's why I have him at 5. Because I'm assuming Jameis Winston is the starter, right? And he's going to go down if Taysom Hill is the starter. But assuming Jameis Winston is the starter, I still only have him 5, even though he was the RB1 last year. It's just because, first of all, is that offense going to be just as good? We don't know. You mentioned the point of he was on pace for 64 targets without Drew Brees. And he's always had at least, I think 97 was his lowest for a season. And if he gets like 60 targets instead of 97 and gets 40 catches instead of 80, that's going to be a huge dip in his value. Now, but you've also heard some positive things. You know, Sean Payton has said that they want to rely on the run game more this year. So does that mean Kamara might get his first 1,000-yard season? Does he get 200 carries? Maybe, but are you going to bank on that? It's hard, man. There's a lot of question marks for someone who has been such a good player for the last few years. So that's why I have him at 5, but he really could go up or down. Yeah,
I totally agree. If it's Jameis, I might move him up, but I think I just argued myself into the number 7 pick. I mean, the number 7 overall.
I mean, early, like a few months ago, I was saying I wouldn't even take him like in the top 8 or 9 picks. So
yeah,
I'm not going to really argue with you there.
Okay, let's move on to the next guy. Number 6 ECR, Jonathan Taylor. I have Jonathan Taylor 8. You have Jonathan Taylor 6 or 7. Okay,
7.
All right, that's fair. So for me, I think we're a little bit lower on Jonathan Taylor than the ECR, and I think a lot of people are not factoring in that Jonathan Taylor. I love Jonathan Taylor. I think he's amazing. Could he go this whole season and be a top 5 running back in fantasy football? Yes, of course. Jonathan Taylor's Jonathan Taylor. He was number 6 last year. Is that right? Yep. Overall, at the end of the season.
Yeah, he was ridiculous.
So, big thing for Jonathan Taylor with me is that they re-signed Marlon Mack. Now, Marlon Mack is basically dead to me at this point, so I don't coming off an Achilles injury. I don't even know why they re-signed him. Hard. It doesn't make sense. But they re-signed him. They still got Jordan Wilkins, I believe, and they still have Nyheim Hines. Nyheim Hines limited Jonathan Taylor through the air. If Marlon Mack comes in and they want to start splitting workload, which Frank Reich did so much last year with Jonathan Taylor, was annoying. Like, I had him half the season, and then I traded him. And towards the back half of the season, they just went fully with Jonathan Taylor. But if Marlon Mack comes in and they're like, oh, we're going to split snaps, it's going to be a 1-2 punch, you're going to draft the top 6 running back in Jonathan Taylor, right? And you're going to get RB2 high-end production. It's going to be like the Clyde Edwards-Helaire of last year.
It could be really bad.
Or it could be top 3. So there's risk, which is why I have him 8. I think at that spot, like if you just were going down my list and looking through that, the guys that I have as high as I do are guys that I like fully believe in, and that I think can definitely, the percentages are really high for them to finish in the top 5, 6. Whereas I think Jonathan Taylor, the percentages are still pretty high for him to finish top 6 or 7, but I think there's a good risk attached to him. Now, like I said, if Alvin Kamara ends up, getting Taysom Hill as the starting quarterback, then Jonathan Taylor, for me, is going to overtake Alvin Kamara. So I'll have him in the exact same spot as you, Rick. But I do think there's some question marks surrounding Jonathan Taylor. Now, does that stop me from drafting him? Does that stop me from putting him 7 or 8 in my rankings? No, because I think he's a fantastic running back, and when the season's all said and done, he'll be the starter and the guy getting 20 carries a game.
Yep. Yeah, no, I agree 100%, man. Taylor at 7 is even like, I'm thinking about it because, like you said, he could be this year's Clyde or he could be top 3. He has the talent to do it. And if the Colts just let him loose, he will be a top 3 fantasy running back. I really believe that.
If they stop throwing the ball to Naheem Hines, yes.
Which I don't think they're going to do. Naheem Hines is going to be involved in that offense. I don't think Marlon Mack is a serious threat to Jonathan Taylor by any means, but that still carries you have to account for, right? Jordan Wilkins, I don't even know if he'll make the team, but if he does, even more carries you have to account for. And Jonathan Taylor last year was really good, especially in the second half of the season.
Yeah.
He had a 92% catch percentage. He had 39 targets, 36 catches. That's not going to happen again. If he gets 39 targets, expect probably 25 to 30 catches, which is going to be about 15, 20 fantasy points less.
Yeah.
Than he did last year. Now you add maybe some more carries because I think he could get more than 232.
Yeah,
maybe a touchdown, some yards, and it's a good season. That's RB6, what he was last year.
Right.
But is that what you like? Are you drafting him like some people are at 3 and 4, expecting him to do what he did last year, which is RB6?
Right.
It's like I think
it's a little risky.
I don't think he's not worth it right there. It is a risk, right?
Yeah. And I think, I don't know if it was Frank Reich not giving him the work because he's a rookie and, he has the same stupid mindset Bill Belichick does sometimes where he gives a rookie, quarterback number 50 in OTAs.
True.
I don't know. Sometimes coaches just hate rookies. And maybe that changes.
You got to make him earn it, right?
But, say it again?
You got to make him earn it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. You got to make him earn his number. But anyway, yeah. So Jonathan Taylor, I mean, if you want to draft him real high, I think 8 is probably where I'm gonna hover around him. Maybe 7 when it's all said and done. But the next guy, number 7 on the ECR is Nick Chubb. I have Nick Chubb number 4, and you have Nick Chubb number 6.
I do have number 6, but I wish I had him 4. I like the boldness.
Okay, so I love Nick Chubb and the disrespect, and I don't want to freak out. This is me in my. You guys are idiots for ranking him so low moment when he's only 4 spots below or 3 spots below where I have him. But the disrespect on Nick Chubb continues year in and year out. And I think he might be on the ground one of the best runners in the NFL.
You're taking my whole flow.
Top 2 at least. I think he's fantastic. And the only concern or problem that I've had with him necessarily is his receiving work. In the season prior, when he played all 16 in 2019, he had 36 catches. Last year, he had 16. Now, he only played in 12 games, so I don't know if that would have changed over the paced out course of the season. But Nick Chubb does need to get more receiving work. And this is the difference between him and Henry, is that he is a better pass catcher than Derrick Henry. And he can pass catch. But when he's on the ground, when he's doing his thing on the ground, he is, like I said, one of the best running backs in the NFL. And I think last year he was pacing out 250 carries, 1,400 paced out rushing yards, and 16 paced out touchdowns. That's enough, really, to do you good. Even though he only paced out to 21 catches for 200 yards, that's still 1,600 all-purpose yards and 16 touchdowns. And that puts him right in the top 3. So for me, there's nothing about, and I actually think this is the year that finally the Browns offense is going to break out because we've been waiting for that to happen.
It kind of broke out last year a little bit.
But I think Nick Chubb is 4 for me because when I look at my list, a Christian McCaffrey 1, Dalvin Cook 2, Derrick Henry 3, I got Nick Chubb, and I would honestly, I fought over Nick Chubb and Saquon Barkley because I think they're dead even for me. I do agree with you that if Barkley is healthy and he's fine, that I probably would rank him ahead of Nick Chubb, but just because Barkley is dealing with an ACL problem, I have to have Nick Chubb at 4.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking to the CEO of the Nick Chubb fan club.
Yes.
For the last 2 seasons, 2-3 years. I have literally Nick Chubb in my Twitter bio. So
that's all right. I got you're
Twitter really bio. Talking to a Nick Chubb fan here.
I got Mac Jones in my Twitter bio, so suck it.
Of course you do. I don't have him number 4, although I kind of wish I did. I have him number 6, and I love the player. And I think what he did last year shows what he is capable of doing. I do think he's one of, if not the best player, running back on the ground. Just pure running back, just running the ball. He might be one of the best in the league, if not the best. My issue is the receiving. It's similar to Derrick Henry. I think he's a better pass catcher than Derrick Henry. He's much more efficient, at least. But his problem is I know he only played 12 games last year. He had 18 targets in 12 games.
Yeah.
The Kareem Hunt thing has just man, if Kareem Hunt was not there, he would be right there with Derrick Henry, and I'd probably put him ahead of Derrick Henry in fantasy.
Yeah.
But with Kareem Hunt there, it just caps Nick Chubb for me as an RB5, RB6, which is still really, really good. And I think, if Kareem Hunt, God forbid, misses any time, Nick Chubb would be right there. But that's just my concern. Unless he gets which is possible if he runs for 5.8 yards a carry and gets 16 rushing touchdowns, which he almost did last year. If he played a full season, that's pretty much what he would have done.
Right.
5.6 rushing yards per carry. If he does that again, then maybe. But I'm not sure if he'll be that efficient again because that's just really hard to replicate. Yeah. 5.6 yards on the ground. I expect him to rush for over 5 yards a carry because he's Nick Chubb. But I don't know if those are going to be the exact numbers. And I did my projections, and he's very good, but I don't think he's going to be top 3.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, I have a tier 2, and you'll see if you buy the draft guide what the tier 2 is for me. But yeah, he's right in that tier 2. So, and I think he's very equivalent to all the tier 2 running backs. I would just take him as my favorite tier 2 running back.
Fair. Yeah, that's totally fair.
So the next guy we have is Ezekiel Elliott, 8. Now, I was down on him earlier in the offseason. I'm a little bit higher on him now. Number 6 for me, 8 on the ECR, and for you, he is 8 as well.
Yep.
So I have Zeke a little bit higher, and I think he just landed higher because I have concerns about Kamara and what you might say about concerns for Jonathan Taylor. But I looked at Zeke's numbers, and the thing that scares me is Zeke has been in the NFL for a little while, and he's starting to get old man knees. I'm not projecting that because the big thing that has always made Ezekiel Elliott the top 4 running back in fantasy football has been the fact that he is healthy, and he does not get hurt, and he does not absolutely poop himself most of the time. So.
Right.
That is what has put him in the top 4 every single season. Now, with Dak Prescott as a starting quarterback, paced out to a full 16 games, where does Ezekiel Elliott land, Rick?
It's probably high.
Number 4.
Yep.
So, where he has always been is where he is paced out with Dak. The big thing for me with Ezekiel Elliott is that I think right now the value of Zeke, and I think he's absolutely freaking robbery right now, because you're going to get him 10th to 12th overall in drafts, most likely. And if you can get that, a guy who's always been drafted in the top 3 or 4, who can do that and probably will if Dak comes back healthy, I think you have to draft him there. And I think he's more of a certain thing than Alvin Kamara, and I think he might be more of a certain thing than Jonathan Taylor. Because there's nothing there to make me believe that Ezekiel Elliott is going to get his job taken by Tony Pollard, or they're going to split snaps or take work away from Zeke. I just don't think that's going to happen. So yeah. I think Zeke he's got the rock, and he's going to run it until he gets hurt. Until they run him into the ground. $100 million contract or whatever it is that he has, they're going to run the guy into the ground. So for me, I think efficiency is going to be the key. I looked at the schedules for these guys, and Zeke right now doesn't have a great schedule, but it's around average. Bottom 12 in the league, I believe. So his schedule is a little bit tougher, but I have him 6 because I just think that he's a sure thing if he doesn't get hurt, and he doesn't get hurt. So I can't I can't justifiably look at Ezekiel Elliott and go, oh, well, he's going to get hurt this year because he's getting older and it's his 7th year in the league or what, a 6th year in the league or whatever. I can't look at him and say that because he's always been healthy. And Dak said he saw him working out. They said he's the healthiest and the best he's ever looked. So I'm going to take Dak's word for it. Don't burn me, Dak.
The training camp hype. No, I get it, man.
You tried to hype up Kyle Pitts today. I don't want to hear it.
Oh, you know it though. It'll be like that all year. So with Zeke, I
drooled all over myself.
I was kind of had the same mindset with Zeke that I did with Kamara. Mm-hmm. Not the exact same, but I was just a little down on him.
Yeah.
Then I've really been doing my research lately with him because I did my projections on the Cowboys already. And kind of a lot of the points you made are very true with his. He never gets injured. Mm-hmm. When he is healthy, he's pretty much top 5 every year except last year. But he was on pace to be top 5
when he has an offense that is not hot garbage.
Right. So if everybody's healthy, there is no reason for either of us to believe that Zeke can't finish in the top 5. Yeah. The only reason I don't, and before we started the show, I was even thinking about moving Zeke up. I'm keeping him at 8 for now. The only reason that he is 8, and again, this is someone who I think might go up my board as the year goes on. I kind of want to finish my projections and then look at everything and do some more research. But right now, the only reason he's that low is just because the Tony Pollard effect. And it's not even like I'm scared of Tony Pollard taking his job. I'm just, how much work are they going to give Tony Pollard? Zeke's going to be the guy, but is it 70-30? Is it 80-20? Is it like, how much is that going to affect Zeke? And will that affect his finish from being like an RB4 to an RB7?
Yeah.
Right. And it's not a huge difference. I'm not saying it's going to be a huge difference, but just a small difference could be the difference in Zeke being.
I think the difference between our rankings is probably, like, I still have him 6, so it's not like it's that big a difference.
Right.
It's probably your belief that Pollard's probably going to get more work, where I don't know that Pollard's going to get more work. I think he's just a high-value handcuff. So
no, I mean, I do think he's a high-value handcuff, too. I don't think he's going to get enough work where you start him week to week. But I want to say he had like 130 carries last year with a healthy Zeke. Mm-hmm. And that I think that concerns me because why would they give him less carries?
Maybe because the season was gone.
It was, but it wasn't. I mean, they were still in a playoff spot up till the last game of the season.
In the playoff?
I mean, they weren't going to do anything in the playoffs, but they had a chance of making it.
Right,
and Tony Pollard was
Dallas.
Honestly more efficient on the ground last year than Zeke.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
Those are things that
they just paid him a friggin' crap ton of money. So
right, that is true. I mean, again, I'm not saying Tony Pollard's going to take his job, but it's just something that I keep in mind.
Right.
With the question marks and why I have him at 8. But if he's fully healthy and that team is fully healthy, and they play the way they were playing those first 5 games of the season last year, Zeke's going to be a top 5 running back again.
Yeah. So let's get to the last 4 guys. I want to blow through these guys in 5 minutes, so we'll do our best.
Okay.
But there's some interesting ones. Aaron Jones, ECR number 9. I have Aaron Jones 13. I have Aaron Jones 12. And you have Aaron Jones 17. Okay, so
I buried him though.
I'm low.
It's the Aaron Rodgers thing.
I'm low on him. You put him in the grave, 8 feet deep.
I did. I buried Aaron Jones.
So
yeah.
For me, Aaron Jones, I put him 4 or 5 spots lower, and it's not because I don't like Aaron Jones, but this is my not like Rick buried Aaron Jones because he thinks Rodgers is not coming back to Green Bay. I buried Aaron Jones because I'm not sure. And I only moved him to 13. I think he's 17, 18, or 19 without Aaron Rodgers. But I think that not knowing right now, I would have to put him at 13 because I think there is some value in drafting him in terms of the risk. But I put him low enough that when you get to your drafts, if Aaron Jones is going off the board, right where you would have that conversation, he's going a little too high for me to draft. So it kind of forces me a little bit and everyone else to not draft Aaron Jones unless he physically falls to RB13, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But I think for him, he's good. But there's just a couple of other things, not including Aaron Rodgers, that concerns me, and his schedule is the worst among running backs, according to Fantasy Pros.
That's not good.
And that's not good at all. And I think they do like A.J. Dillon, and I think that they will get A.J. Dillon involved in that offense in some way. The split workload has not hurt Aaron Jones in the past, but I think it's not hurt Aaron Jones in the past because he has a high ceiling when it comes to scoring touchdowns. If their offense blows next year or Jordan Love doesn't work out, that's not going to be there for them. So I have him 13 because I at this point, I don't know the worth of Aaron Jones getting drafted that high. I would almost step on the line of saying he might be a bust this year.
Yeah, I mean, if Rodgers doesn't play, then he will be. I think he will be because people are still going to be like, well, let's not overreact. He's still Aaron Jones, and it's going to change a lot because Aaron Jones's biggest thing in fantasy is his touchdown production. He's great in the red zone, and he gets a lot of touchdowns. But if that offense is going to stink, which it will without Aaron Rodgers, I won't say stink, but it'll be a lot worse. Then that's going to really affect Aaron Jones. That's why I have him 17 because I don't know if Aaron Rodgers is going to be a part of the Packers next year.
Yeah.
Assuming Rodgers stays in Green Bay, though, I do agree with your concerns. I would still put him maybe like 10 or 11 because last year, even with the split, he was still very good. Jamal Williams isn't there, so he'll probably take some of Jamal Williams' work. A.J. Dillon is still going to be involved in that offense, though. You're right. They do like A.J. Dillon. They want to get him going. They took a second-round pick on him. He will be involved. But Aaron Jones will still be good enough, and if Rodgers is there, he'll still score touchdowns. So I think he'll still be good.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Rodgers thing, man,
that's the killer for
be
him.
Concerned about, right?
Now Rodgers comes back, says I'm playing with Green Bay, shows up to training camp. Where you have him ranked?
Yeah, probably 10 or 11.
Yeah, I would same region. Agree. All right, next guy, Cam Akers. You have him 10. I have him 13. The ECR has him 10. I believe I have him 13. I'm going to check real fast. So, I mean, I love Cam Akers. He's not my top 12. Sorry. Guys like Najee and well, actually, did I say I have Aaron Jones 12? I might have said that I have him 13. I have Aaron Jones 12. I'm sorry.
Okay.
So I actually might move Cam Akers up one. We'll see. I love Cam Akers. I looked at his numbers. I got sweaty. I'm excited. Everyone's excited. You pace out his numbers at the end of the season to a full 16. He looks like Todd Gurley. Okay, we get it. We've heard all the good things about Cam Akers. I like him a lot. I think he's a breakout running back this year. I think he can do really great things. End in the top 10. Like, I think he's fantastic. There's other guys that I want over him, but I think he's going to be fantastic. The big concern for me with Cam Akers is he's never done it. Last season, they went through, like, he had a short, small sample size and short, small window where he did it.
True.
But he didn't do it for the full season. Now, everyone's making the assumption that they just murdered Darrell Henderson, threw him in a box to the left, and said, Cam Akers, it's your backfield. And I still think they want to utilize Darrell Henderson in some role. I don't know that Cam Akers is going to get a Todd Gurley workload. And the worst case scenario for Cam Akers is that they start the season 50-50 split or 45-55, which I don't think is good news for Cam Akers. So there is always that shot that happens, which is why I would have certain guys over him like Najee and Antonio Gibson. But he's still a fantastic draft pick. Like, if you're on the board in the second round and Cam Akers is there, take him. Like, it is.
Yeah.
There's only a few guys that I would take over him, and I might actually move him up to 12 right now because I think that he's going to be that good.
With Akers, man, it's just taking the leap of faith.
Yeah,
it's taking that leap of faith, assuming they're going to use him the way they did at the end of the year.
I feel like,
and in the playoffs,
like Gibson,
which I think
we know is going to get that workload. Najee, we know is going to get that workload. Cam Akers, for me, even if it's only a 10% question, there's still question there that he might not get a full gamut of snaps.
That is fair, but I'm not too worried about Darrell Henderson because I think at the end of last year,
either. Trust me.
It was shown who the guy was, right? Yeah. And I think the playoffs was a big thing for me. I wanted to see how they used them in the playoffs, and because obviously you're trying to win the playoffs. This is what their kind of intentions are, right, with the players.
Yep.
Cam Akers was used a whole lot. He had almost 30 carries in the game against Seattle. And in the game where they were losing the entire time against Green Bay, he still got 18 carries for 90 yards. He's going to be a monster, man. I really have joined the Cam Akers hype train.
Yeah.
It's kind of like when Derrick Henry broke out, and it was only those 3 games, and we both had our concerns at that time that he's never done it for a full season, and it was only a few
but I
games.
actually think Cam Akers is a good running back, whereas at the time I thought Derrick Henry was trash.
Which was a mistake on your part, though.
Yeah.
Go
ahead.
But yeah, no, with Cam Akers being able to do that at the end of last year, he showed me a lot. The playoffs, he showed me a lot.
Yeah.
I think he's the guy. That offense is going to be, I think, better as well. I know you're not crazy about Matt Stafford, but I think that's
no. I love Matt Stafford. What are you talking about?
Okay, never mind. I think he's a real upgrade.
You mixed me up with somebody on Twitter?
Maybe.
Love Matt Stafford.
And dude, I'm willing to take the leap.
I literally took him in the mock draft on Tuesday.
He was on pace last year, and I know that you already mentioned the Todd Gurley, blah, blah, blah. You probably don't even want to hear it. But he was on pace when he became the starter for 344 carries.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's stupid.
All right, so we're going to talk about these next 2 guys in a minute because we got to end the show. It's been 50 minutes. Ay.
I knew it was going to happen.
It's 12 guys. I mean, what am I going to do? I should just do top 6 next time or break it into 2 parts. I don't know.
Yeah.
But number 11 on the ECR is Joe Mixon. I have him 14. You have him 13. I think only reason why I have Joe Mixon in that vicinity is that I believe in Joe Mixon, by the way. I think he could actually be really good, but I think there's just so many running backs right now that have opportunity and that can break out and be RB1s that at this point, Joe Mixon's the guy that's getting hit, essentially, if that makes any sense. He's the one that's fallen down the draft boards in my particular list because there's just so many guys that I really like over him. I don't really have any complaints about Joe Mixon. I think in that offense with Joe Burrow and the way it's going to function this year and the better offensive line, it could spell really great things for Joe Mixon. I think he does have injury concern, which is always there. But I think Joe Mixon just 13 because I have a lot of guys, or 14 for me because I have a lot of guys I like in front of him.
Yeah, I mean, I did my projections, man. And I am high on, or I did my predictions for the Bengals. I'm high on Mixon, apparently. I have him having a very good season. I think it's just because of what he did last year before he got hurt. And it kind of was all in one game, to be honest, because he had 3 really bad games, and then he had 2 really good ones, and then got hurt. So inconsistency is a concern. I think the offensive line is a concern. And as you said, they did improve the offensive line, but not as much as I think a lot of people would like. And as you said, it's just so many guys, so many running backs, that it feels like Mixon is kind of the odd man out. So I still think he's going to be really good, and he's another guy who might move up my rankings.
Yeah, fair enough.
But there's always that concern. Man. We've been waiting for Joe Mixon.
If I do move Joe Mixon up
for 4 years.
I know, seriously. I will move Joe Mixon up. I mean, I might move Joe Mixon up, but I'm not sure. The only guy I would move him up ahead of is Aaron Jones if Rodgers does go. But anyway, the final guy that we have really quickly is Antonio Gibson, ECR 12. He's not. Hold on a second. Antonio Gibson's 12 on the ECR. Where is he on my list? Okay, he's 10 on my list. He's 11 on your list, and you have Cam Akers ahead of him. Interesting.
I do.
This is probably on my list. I have Austin Eckler 9, by the way. Najee Harris 11.
I have Eckler 9 as well. And Harris, I think I have 12.
Say the other one.
Najee Harris, I have 12, and Eckler, I have 9. So
okay, so we have essentially the same top 10, top 12 in just different orders.
Yep.
But Gibson for me is literally he's elite, and I think I traded 2 first-round picks in a dynasty league because he is literally getting the same talk of how they used Christian McCaffrey in Carolina, and it's Ron Rivera. I'm not making like magic.
Right.
I'm not pooping rainbows over here. I'm literally telling you that the man who gave Christian McCaffrey all of that work is preparing to give Antonio Gibson all of that work. So if you think that Antonio Gibson is trash or isn't good or is in a bad offense or whatever, it don't matter, because Ron Rivera is over here pooping rainbows and making Antonio Gibson real good. Antonio Gibson's he's gonna break out. He's gonna be top 5. I've never been more sure of anything in my life.
Okay.
So I have him. I have him 10, and I might move him. I might move him to 9. I might move him past. I might move him past JT because I believe that much in him. But I'm gonna dial it back a little bit.
You're the Gibson fan on this show. I like Antonio Gibson though too. I own him in a lot of leagues. It's funny because in the beginning of last season, or before the year started, it was like in July or August. And I was like, dude, Gibson's a good late round flyer. And you're like, stop. You weren't about it. But then when you saw him on the
field, there's one thing's for sure is I'm willing to learn and grow.
Yes.
And make
and
mistakes.
You switched too so much so that went ahead of me in your Gibson love.
He's my Miles Sanders this year. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
Yeah. True. Last year when he became the starter, he got hurt in one of these games. So like he would have been even better than this, but he was on pace for 212 carries, 1,100 yards, and he had one carry in one of those games because he got hurt in the first play of the game against the Steelers. Right. So he probably would have had even more. But again, 212 carries, 1,100 yards, 16 touchdowns, 44 targets, 34 receptions. Are you concerned that J.D. McKissic is going to take a lot of the targets and that he might not reach his full potential because of that in the passing game, or no?
Never.
Okay.
Not for a second.
I still love Gibson, man. I have him 11.
Still not for a second. They said they want to get him, quote, more involved, unquote, in the passing game.
Oh, even better.
Yeah. So. I think that's literally when I traded for him in the Dynasty League and gave up 2 first-round picks, my mindset was in 2 years this guy might be Christian McCaffrey, number 1 like in fantasy football at the running back position. And if that does happen, 2 first-round picks, what's that? I would do that for Christian McCaffrey all day.
Before someone comments saying like, "Oh, you said Cam Akers was great in the playoffs. Why didn't you bring up Gibson being bad in the playoffs?" Gibson was hurt in playoff game. He was battling that ankle injury throughout those last few games of the season. So if you watched that game, you saw he was slow. Yeah. He did not look good. Right. He didn't look like the same player. So I don't blame him for that game.
Okay. Well, there you have it. There is our top 12 running backs. Different than the ECR. Very much different than the ECR. But we have a list. I think we're going to talk about wide receivers on Tuesday's show, so be sure to check that out. Check out our mock draft show on Tuesday and buy the draft guide. So you do all that stuff, you win your fantasy leagues. We'll talk to you on Tuesday, my friends.
We'll see you guys later.
Thank you for listening to the Fantasy Champions Podcast. Make sure you subscribe on iTunes and YouTube and follow us on Twitter @TheFFChamps.